Thanks for having us today. We're here to talk about how DynTek creates success for our customers in Azure. My name is Steve Sanchez. We have a quick agenda here. We're going to talk about our methodology, our assessment techniques, and the four-step process to successful Azure implementation for customers. The biggest hurdle for most customers to overcome is an understanding of what Azure can do for them as it compares to their current environment. And for us, we take a look at that from an analysis perspective. We analyze, using the Fast Start program from Microsoft, the customer's current environment. We design a future state environment for them and present them with a comparative analysis of the costs associated between where they currently are and what it would cost for them to be both in a lift and shift environment in Azure as well as in an optimized environment, taking advantage of the elasticity of Azure. Then we move to a build out of that environment, deployment, whether that's migration of their current environment or net new deployment, and then we have managed services around that we can help the customer to manage that. We can manage it for them, or we can give them the tools to manage that on a day-to-day basis for them. The Fast Start assessment is a 2-week runtime assessment of the customer's current environment. We use an algorithmic tool that analyzes all of the current environment or the target environment for the customer's current infrastructure, and we look at hundreds of thousands of transactions per minute in the customer's environment to build out IOPS and CPU speed and all of the necessary metrics for us to determine exactly how much of that environment is being used. Then we do a workshop with the customer where we go through all of the components of Azure, what an Azure environment looks like, what an Azure environment would look like for that customer specifically around their workload requirements, whether those workload requirements are disaster recovery and business continuity, whether they're dev test environment, whether they're looking at SQL in Azure, whether they're looking at Citrix in Azure. We create a workshop for them around the capabilities of Azure to meet those expectations. And then we do an Azure proof of concept for them for 2 to 3 days where we work with the customer to kind of build out the understood workload for that environment. So again, the health check for Azure provides a really detailed report around cost analysis, current environment, gives you a really great planning tool, assessment, and modeling tools that really help you to look at what is my environment going to look like in Azure. And for many customers, it gives them a real good assessment of their current environment. And it's really, quite honestly, one of the most intuitive and comprehensive analysis that you could do to really take a look at how you're going to migrate into an Azure workload, because it really does give you not only real cost analysis and lift and shift, moving your exact environment as it stands today into Azure, but it also analyzes the workload that is on those devices and tells you what is it going to cost to move that workload from your current environment into Azure in an optimized environment for the elastic capabilities. So the health check for Azure has 2 plans. There's an assess and then there's a plan, a version of that. During the assessment plan, we're looking at all of your environment currently. We're scanning your physical and virtual machines. We're calculating the costs of those servers, and we're providing you a detailed report about each one of the environmental nodes within your current environment on your on-premises or in a hosted environment that you currently have. And we're providing you with a true assessment for offering you the capability of migrating to Azure for your workloads. The alternative and the other second step to that is the plan step. And in here we're running health check for Azure to prepare for migrating and mapping those dependencies between the nodes and applications, determining your cloud readiness for each server, and choosing the right settings for a smooth migration. And in fact, some of those settings can be predefined by the modeling template that exists. It'll help to set up firewall settings and some of the configurations that are already necessary based on some of the assumptions and some of the assessment that we take a look at. So in our opinion, plan is the best option for the assessment, and customers get the most value out of the plan rather than just the assess. It's the assess and plan that we put together for customers, because it gives you both a real-life analysis and a optimized analysis, and it gives you the capability of being able to model what moving certain workloads into the cloud is going to look like, what the costs associated with that are going to look like, and what the interconnected requirements are for that. So step 1 of our process is we analyze, we do the workload assessment, we analyze hundreds of thousands of data points a minute for 2 weeks at a minimum. We do a lift and shift cost estimate, and again, that is just exactly what you have. I have a 4-core processor CPU with X amount of storage and X amount of memory. I want to move that exact scenario into Azure versus an optimized cost estimate, which now we're looking at what are the detailed analysis to outcomes of our assessment that tell us, based on your IOPS, based on your CPU consumption, based on all of these algorithms that we look at, what would you be able to move that server into Azure for and actually look at just the maximum of what you're using. So let's say that 4-core, 192 gig RAM server that you're using, you're only using 50% of that environment. So if we were to say, let's take 75% of that to give us some headroom and move it into Azure, instead of paying that 100% cost you have, now you're in an elastic environment able to just take a look at optimizing that environment. And then we provide you with the tools for migration planning. And that mapping that I'm talking about, where we look at those hundreds of thousands of data points a minute for those the minimum 2-week period, that looks like this. This is the raw data from one of those analyses. And again, we're looking at CPU thread, CPU utilization, observed memory, peak usage, everything you could possibly imagine from an analysis capability on a server and from server and storage capability. So very important for us to look at that. So we look at the compute, we look at the storage, and again, here we're looking at virtual disk occurrence, IOPS, and then we also look at the network assessment of your environment as well. So this gives us the capability of being able to really take a look at what an optimized environment would look like for you. So once that's all been done, we take all that data and kind of crunch it into a portal, into a dashboard that we present to you that gives you the capability of being able to see each one of the interoperable capabilities. So I'm able to see when a dependency exists for another tool, for certain servers, for workloads that work together. I'm able to see my lift and shift cost and my compute cost. I'm able to break it down, as it shows here, by compute cost, by storage cost, and by my network cost. And this would be a lift and shift, not an optimized cost experience. And this tool, this dashboard, gives us the capability of being able to plan a migration for a customer based not only on looking at the entire environment, but additionally we're able to come down and take a look at individual servers and group those individual servers in workloads as well. So here we see a modeling tool that gives us the capability of being able to see internetworking and interdependent capabilities within your data center, so we can start to look at what would the costs associated be moving certain workloads that may have interdependencies of other servers, databases, network, storage, what have you. And we can model out for you what that interdependency is going to look like and what the cost of moving that specific workload is into Azure. Step 2 is we, again, complete one of our 4 fast start workshops. This is a 3 to 4 day workshop where we kind of go through all of the components of Azure as it relates to one of these workshops. So we have the Infrastructure as a Service Foundation workshop, again, where we're extending your infrastructure, providing you with a data center extension, or giving you some sort of similar to what you have in your own current data center today, some sort of extension of that infrastructure into the cloud or a net new infrastructure in the cloud. Then we have SharePoint on IaaS. Again, this is a SharePoint environment built in Azure in the Infrastructure as a Service solution. We worked through a workshop with you around all of the SharePoint interdependencies and creating a SharePoint proof of concept for you. The 2 most common and probably most popular workloads that we work through are the disaster recovery and business continuity workload, again, running Azure Site Recovery, looking at how we do run, backup, or archive of workloads in Azure. Very popular scenario for customers to take a look at how we manage disaster recovery and replication of information into Azure and what that looks like. Then the last one is, again, one of our more popular ones. Customers are looking for places to be able to create dev test environments. Dev test environments are very important to customers, especially customers that are looking to try to look at more current technologies, whether that's 2016 or whether that's Red Hat or Ubuntu or some other technology that you may not necessarily want to invest in and have sitting in your data center. This gives you the capability of being able to have a dev test environment where your developers can kind of go in and test their applications against environments and on servers and databases that you may not necessarily have in your environment, or you're examining the capabilities of being able to roll those out in your environment. This really gives you the elasticity of being able to not have a dependency within your data center to be able to provide future growth for your environment through your development and test environment. Step 3 is to develop a consumption plan. Obviously, we take a look at all the data that has been created, and we take a look at all of the information that we've gathered through the workshops, through the obviously the question and answer time that we spend with the end user group, and all of the analysis that we've gathered from our tools. And we create a consumption plan and a virtual analytics report that really takes a look at all of the tools associated with how we go to market and what that looks like. We show you the pay-as-you-go, the workload pay-as-you-go cost, and then we are able to provide you with optimized environment cost for your current environment, and then we can even drill down into specific workloads, servers, optimized workload costs as well. And then it's a very powerful tool and gives you a really powerful ROI around what it would cost for you to move your compute into Azure, either completely or in partial areas where you may be able to take advantage of some of the benefits of Azure. And then step 4 is the implementation. So again, we're going to determine which workloads we're going to migrate. We're going to finalize that connectivity, whether or not that connectivity is through VPN, whether that connectivity is in some other format. We're going to take a look at that and try to determine VPN, express route, how do we best analyze a customer's requirements for those two tools, and what's the best way for them to connect to that, to the data center in the cloud, so to speak, from Azure. We're going to deploy it to Azure. We're going to design it, we're going to build it, and we're going to deploy it for you. And then we can offer as well 24/7 monitoring, preventive maintenance, incident response, and we can provide you also with the tools through using Operations Management Suite and some of the other tools that are native to the Azure set, where we can provide you with management and support for your environment, and you guys can manage and support that yourselves. Pretty much that's it. That's our goals for how DynTek is successful with our customers in Azure. Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.